We're joined by Phil and Adam from Before the Morning. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Doing great. Thank you so much for coming out. Curious how the band got together and kind of where your roots are. If you could each of us tell us kind of how you got involved in music, maybe some of the musical heroes who inspired you to want to do music.
I was in a band called Against All Will for a short amount of time, and I wanted to get back to metal. And so I decided to call up some friends and start a band, and they called in Adam. And we've had a ton of member changes ever since, but it's still me and Adam. And now we have a solid lineup. Our rest of the guys live in Florida. And, it's been about 3 years of building and just kind of getting the band to where we want it to be. So that's how it got started.
Sure.
I got started playing in Santa Barbara in punk bands. I was actually a punk rock kid and loved to. I just surfed, played drums, and played punk rock.
Going to Warped Tour and hitting all the shows. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Beautiful. How about you?
Yeah, like Phil was saying, I was in a band. We were in similar bands for, I don't know, almost a decade going through the Hollywood scene. Both our bands kind of fell apart. Phil had started this band with an ex-guitar player of ours, and that ex-guitar player was in a band of mine, knew that I wasn't doing anything at the moment, asked if I wanted to put some vocals down on a song that they had at the time, and we did, and it was the beginnings of what Before the Morning is now. And as far as me personally, I grew up listening to a bunch of different stuff. My dad was a classic rock guy, so I found myself when I was younger digging through old vinyls that he had. At the time, unfortunately, when I was growing up, he was already into his country music phase, so I wasn't too big into what he was listening to at the time.
Did you inherit the vinyl collection? Or?
I didn't inherit the vinyl. My dad still has it. So,
okay.
Yeah. But I listened to a lot of his Led Zeppelin records. He had Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood.
That's a great record.
He had. I listened to the Europe record that had like a Final Countdown on
Quality right there.
Whatever I could find in his collection that wasn't country music, I listened to it. And now I do listen to country. I mean, I listen to everything now just to try to stay, just try to stay open-minded with all different kinds of music. But
sure.
Growing up, I mean, my biggest influences, I guess, on myself when I was younger was Metallica. I was a big Rob Zombie fan, White Zombie, the White Zombie days.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Grohl has always been somebody who I like both as a musician and a vocalist and things like that too. So Nirvana days into Foo Fighters, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, things like that. I was really into like that Seattle grunge sound,
Yeah.
And then later on in life, when I met some different people and they introduced me to some heavier music than what I'd been listening to, my styles really started to go more towards like that Gothenburg sound, like In Flames and Soilwork. And then the bands here in America that were doing the style of music that I really, identified with were like Killswitch Engage, All That Remains, Shadows Fall, like that big East Coast.
The Boston scene.
You know what I mean? That metalcore, melodic, still, with the hardcore in it and stuff like that.
There's so many damn names for metal. It's hard to keep.
Yeah,
I know.
There's so many.
There's really
so
only two kinds of music, right? Music that moves you, music that doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what
Forget
I mean?
about all the terms and labels.
Yeah.
Because you guys are obviously mixing punk rock, metal, from death to catchy stuff.
And I'm sure
You know?
Our guitar player CJ and those guys probably have some 50 different subgenre name for the style of music that we play, but I mean, if it's like you said, it's music that moves you, and if it moves you, you're gonna like it. If you don't, you're gonna go on to something else that does, and
Sure.
Yeah, that's how I like to say. We write music. You know what I mean? Yeah. It happens to be of the heavier variety.
Right.
But we're just trying to write songs.
Yeah.
And good music that we like. That's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you want a memorable song, something that could be an anthem. The people want to pump their fist or mosh to or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's there's not just about going out there and being like, look how fast I can go, or look how heavy I can play. It's like, check out this song. There's a piece of music we created.
And there's nothing wrong with those bands that are out there that play music like that for the technicality. I mean, we're all fans of that kind of stuff too. I think from the 5 different styles of people that we have in this band, we just want to make sure that we're writing songs. We just
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we, and to further go on it, I don't think we set out to write heavy or mellow. It's just kind of like, what do we feel? Let's write a song, and just kind of let it naturally, organically happened. And it just kind of comes out and you do it. And sometimes it gets real heavy and sometimes it doesn't, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But
But
it's
for
just-
those that are getting, used or new to the band, where would you kind of put yourself in the musical horizon these days? Who would be some of those bands you would love to tour with?
Oh, tour.
Yeah, like I was saying before, at least influences on me, and I think I can speak for CJ, our guitarist, and and Jeff and Paul that aren't here right now too. We are all fans of that European, that Gothenburg metal sound, like In Flames, Soilwork, things like that. So I think we're trying to incorporate that sort of sound into an American metal feel as well, kind of blending the two.
Yeah. And as far as bands that tour with, I mean, we love to tour like Kill Switch or
Kill Switch, Engage, In Flames.
I'd love to tour with Bring Me the Horizon. They're my new favorite band right now. I never listened to them until a couple weeks ago. little out of the loop, but yeah, they're awesome. So I think it'd be kind of cool to tour with a band like that, or bands that have more of a. It's not just like always gnarly death metal. I don't think the crowds would like us, even though I like those bands and I would enjoy touring with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, bands that would have somewhat of a similar sound, but different. And I'll tour with anyone really.
I think Demon Hunter would be another good band too.
That'd be a great band.
I'm a big fan of Demon Hunter, but I think that they they're one of those bands that kind of incorporates that European sound with what we are too. I mean, any band. I mean, obviously, we'd love to tour with any band.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
But I think the styles of music that we there's a lot of melody in our stuff too.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of keeping things melodic as well as heavy and groovy.
Sure.
So those types of bands would be probably the better bands that we could tour with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so something you can remember, something you can wrap your head around and want to hear again, whether it's the hook or the
memorable
groove.
hooks, and you can hum along, and there's a tune there. At the end of the day. So
yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Now, how did these band members end up coming from Florida? I mean, and you've got this bi-coastal band going here.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
That's an interesting situation. So our guitar player knew our manager. He played drums in Devil Driver. And long story short, that didn't work out, but he remembered the kid. He was a cool kid. Had his shit together, basically. He was a good writer. Let's bring him out and see what he can do. And he just fit. Yeah, that was pretty much that. And then as we lost one member, he'd be like, I got a guy here that's perfect. And it just, they were, but they just happened to be in Florida.
Yeah, that's kind of how our Florida market became part of the band. Is just because once CJ was in there, we knew he was the guy.
Yeah.
And personnel changes happened again, and we needed people to fill in. And he obviously had played with a bunch of people in Florida that were all they're all ready to go. So he's just like, I know this guy, he plays bass, and I know this guy, he plays guitar, and they learn the songs, and it's been this back and forth of them coming out here when we need to play blocks of shows and things like that. And it sort of had to be that way to build it to where it is now, and now it seems like things are shaping up where it's going to be moving around to get to wherever tour starts instead of playing just little one-off shows. Every
So really, these days you could be based anywhere as long as you can get together to record and rehearse.
Exactly.
You just have to be practiced yourself, so you have to have discipline, and you go in and you play to the CD, and you play it perfectly. So when you get together, you're rehearsing for a show. You're not practicing and learning anything. You already know it. You just have to be on that
gelling
level.
together.
Yeah, exactly. So you have 2 days to knock off the rust, and then you go play a show, which is nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But as long as you practice hard enough, you're okay.
Well, tell us about the album. What the process was like coming up with the songs, how it was produced, and what you're most proud of achieving with that.
Yeah, I mean, really, we did it at my house. I engineered it, and then the whole band produced it, and then.
So pretty self-contained.
Yeah, we just hung out at the house and wrote music, man. I have a studio there. Anyone can have Pro Tools now. And the vocals were done. He did vocals with Logan Bader.
Okay.
So I gracefully bowed out when it came to doing vocals because I can't produce vocals. I wouldn't have done it good enough. I wouldn't be able to be like, hey, do this or do that or I don't know. Yeah,
and passing that off, Logan and I have worked together for years before this, and it just when it comes to vocals and getting the sound that I like out of the way that I want my vocals to sound, he really gets it. That, and he's a really good producer too. So
Yeah, he mixed the record and mastered it as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't mix or anything. I captured it all. And then
Right.
made it sound great.
You got the raw recording and then he polished it.
Yeah.
I would mix it up and like clean it up and then do all the editing and stuff, and then I'd get it to him so there'd be a basic mix of like here's where like the simple basic levels of what we want. But usually most engineers will just be like, oh yeah, cool, and they just make it sound sick. So whatever he did, it sounded great. We're happy with it.
So what advice do you have those bands on the way up? Because we know it's all about the songs. Everybody wants to jam. They're playing covers and riffing in the basement. But really, when it comes down to it,
I would say focus on writing. Learn how to write a good song and really push yourself to be better. Our manager has done that to us. He's be like, oh, it's great. Can it be better? Can you do this? So really try and make your material the best you can and practice and play. You got to go play live for people. You got to get people into it. And so good music and playing live shows, basically. Yes, and work hard. Good work ethic. Don't be a douche.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize how important that is. When you get on the road, bands got to coexist.
Yeah.
If you're the guy everybody hates, nobody wants to be on the road with you.
I've been that guy before.
I would stress above anything is just being a decent person, just being a solid dude. Be humble. Be willing to listen to people that have done already what you're trying to do.
Yeah, be respectful.
Be respectful because sometimes what they're telling you might be something that doesn't really mesh with you, but you might get something out of that by giving somebody the time of day. And I playing shows, taking shows, playing anywhere, playing everywhere, especially for like when you're coming up and doing whatever, like you need to do that, and Phil is right. Focusing on songwriting and things like that, it definitely is there. I just have always felt like being a good person, being seen around there, seeing what's going on.
Yeah, be part of the scene.
Yeah, and. Which is what we've tried to do that too. So
it's like last night I went out to Loaded Bar in Hollywood or whatever, and my friends were playing. And it's just everyone's there, and it's like it's like high school reunion kind of. It's just
hot, sweaty
everyone
club.
there, But there's a scene. You got to be part of that scene, and once you're in that scene, and if you're a good person, you grow up in that scene, and then the next thing you know, you're one of the main guys of it, and then and it's just a big family, and just. You just gotta be out there. If you're out of sight, you're out of mind.
Yeah, you got to campaign for your brand.
Exactly. I'm a total homebody too. So for me, I have to still go out and do it. I'd rather sit at home with my animals and watch TV. You know what I mean? And
but also be aware too, and I think this touches on that too. If you keep, it's weird. It's a tough thing because if you go out there and eventually you'll see that if you're not feeling like there's anything happening where you're moving beyond what's also going on then too, is that you're getting a little too wrapped up in the scene that's going on there too. I mean, it's great. It's true. Great to have. It's great to have the pat on the back from everybody else around you that's doing the exact same thing that you are, because you need that kind of encouragement. It should be that you should definitely have that so you can move forward. But also you have to come to a certain point where you want to get out of wherever you are. You know what I mean? You want to move. You want to bring it to the masses. You
don't be stuck in a clique.
And exactly, and you'll be stuck in a clique forever. And
just because
your friend is telling you that this is the best thing that they've ever heard, you really gotta. At that point, you have to make yourself super vulnerable, because you got to be able to put yourself into other places and have somebody tell you that maybe you're not as good as what you think you are. And then that's where it comes, where you take a look at yourself and you just say, maybe it's because my songs aren't that. It could be, or maybe not aren't that great, but maybe could be better than what they are, And then that's the instance where that's where people sometimes get producers, or they get friends or other people involved to make something a better song. If you want to make your music the best that it can be, I think people are really hung up on having somebody else just sit in and give some critiques on stuff. And you don't have to hire somebody. You don't have to pick somebody that you don't know. Pick a friend who you respect that's writing some music that you think is really good too, and have them just collaborate.
And that's willing to be honest with you. That's not going to blow smoke up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Get an honest friend. John Birkland, our manager, is an honest friend.
He's very, 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 very honest.
He was a friend first before he was our manager, and he's never deviated from telling me that I suck on a regular basis. So you know what I mean. That's not what I mean. But I mean it's. I'd rather have somebody telling me that things could improve.
He's not afraid to be like, here, step this area up.
Constructive criticism.
Taking constructive criticism and not taking it take it personal in the sense of like, yeah, use it. This person cares enough to tell you something to better yourself,
right?
You know, and that's not some
It's okay
troll,
it's
not
okay
some
to be
troll
upset,
on the
but-
internet.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
I love
everybody.
the haters. I'm like, the more we have,
But
the,
yeah, I mean they're just going to be there. But I'm talking about somebody that's actually giving some like.
Right. Your
Real
friends or
constructive-
family may not tell you the real.
Exactly. And friends and family, that's great when you're feeling down and you need somebody to tell you that you're good. Friends and family are perfect, but when you
Yeah.
want to have somebody if you care enough about what you do,
Yeah.
that you're going to take the good with the bad, you want to have somebody that's going to be telling you the
yeah,
way it is.
yeah, you gotta, you know, I guess, and to add upon that, is like, you can't be afraid to hurt someone's feelings in the sense
Yeah.
of, if it needs to be said, you gotta
And you're not
say
do-
it.
and
You know,
you
there's
can't-
nice ways to
can't hold
deliver it,
back.
and that's what
Yeah.
I'm having to work on. Is the nice way of delivering it. But things need to be said. You know, and you can't be afraid to hurt someone's feeling for the betterness of a band.
It is a business at the end of the day if you're really taking it seriously and you are a product and you are trying to put a product out to people. And you know, I heard this early on. It's, you know, it's called the music business, not the music friendship. So you know, it's like, and that's brutal sometimes. It's tough to hear, but when we're all trying to create if that's what you want to do with music is create something for the masses and a product, then you are a product. And you just the way you would at a store or you work in any other job to get to be the best that it can be. You got to
Well, you're kind of like a sports team.
Yeah,
And a sports team is watching films and getting
Exactly.
practicing and
Critiquing.
practicing.
That's
Coach is not yelling at you because he hates you. He loves you and wants to win.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
that
manager is your coach.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I grew up playing sports, so it's like that's an analogy that I use a lot. Like if you can get somebody to record your set or film you playing, like look at it like game film. You know,
Like you're in the crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah, we never get to see it from that angle.
Yeah.
It's good. It's
So-
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, on stage
absolutely.
it goes by so quick, and you don't know what you're doing. You think you're rocking out the whole time. Half the time you're just looking up at the ceiling.
Right,
So
right.
I'm the drummer, so I can kind of
Okay.
get away with that. But, you know, yeah, you know, it's good to watch that stuff because you don't realize. I keep looking away from the camera.
Yeah,
You don't
no, that's
realize
fine.
that. You know, you got to be moving, and it's a show. You're putting on a performance. You know what I mean? And when you watch the film, like he was saying, you're like, oh, okay, I wasn't moving right there. I thought I was rocking out, but really you're just sitting there like that. You know, but you're not moving. You're not like your body's not moving. You know.
Well, we're in a very visual age, and people are watching videos on YouTube or TV or whatever. So you got to kind of bring a bit of the show to the show.
Exactly. Yeah.
you
When we
know?
first started, we had a massive light show, and
Yeah.
we did all this stuff, and now we're just kind of like, screw that. We went back to the basics of just being a band. I think
Sure.
eventually we'd like to get back to.
You
that.
could always add lights. you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
I still have.
Kind of came out with too many guns blazing. I think at the beginning, you know. So.
Yeah, we bit off a little more than we could chew in the beginning.
yeah,
but it was cool. You know, it definitely created a name for us a little bit. So.
Sure.
But I still have a lot of those lights. So eventually.
But we did the
we'll
same
put some
thing. We
stuff
took
back in.
we took the criticisms and the critiques from people,
Yeah.
and we focused on just making better songs, writing better songs. You know, and that's ultimately at the end of the day. That's what music is about, is the song. So you might as well be focusing on the song.
Everything else can be built up around them.
Exactly. So.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the importance of building a team, because I know you guys got a good manager. You've got a new agency behind you. You've got your
publicist,
label, your
marketing,
publicist, the marketing, and all that. Talk about how important it is to really be firing on all cylinders to really have all those holes filled.
I mean, for what we've done, I guess, over the past 3 years, not having any of those things involved to having all of these things involved right now, I think it's crucial. I don't know. As
It's
far
just
as
people who know people that have what do you call it? They have pull. They know people, so when they call and say, "Hey, listen to this," they're gonna listen. Versus if you're random, Joe from wherever. And you just call a booking agency or whatever. Say, listen to this. You get put at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
So it helps you get the meeting people. And
I
Right.
mean,
can't think of the right word right now.
yeah,
Clout.
it's just just as the progression of things where we got a manager at first, and we made sure that whoever he was our friend, but also and this is I guess just for advice on people, make sure you're getting somebody that cares about what's going on and also has a little bit more of an into where you want to be. At least can get you in front of other people that can help start making some things happen.
Yeah, like a manager's job is to like get your music into the hands that you can't get it to. You know, if your friend says you're their manager and they're not really doing anything but showing up to shows and getting drunk, and
we're super.
That's not
we're super. We're super lucky and we're super stoked that we got Street Smart Marketing involved with us now, and because of them they've opened up the doors, and it's just like it's just the the snowball effect after that, but it comes back to the same thing that we were talking about before. It's just that putting in that work, putting in the sacrifice, putting in all those hours of doing everything else that it takes, and it could take a short amount of time and it could take a really long amount of time, and then you'll get those little breaks and you just keep chipping away. And I think that's with any musician, is like when you give up, that's when you've truly failed. It's just if you don't quit, you never know. Tomorrow you could be hitting somebody else that actually is going to be giving you that chance.
Yeah, that's true. I've always said it takes about 3 years to start a band. So 3 years, you develop your sound, you get through the people, you figure out who works, who doesn't. It's like you always think it's great in the first year, and then by the time you get to the third year, you're like, oh wow, it's just a difference. So I've always said it's about 3 years, and then a band just kind of really locks in tight. Or maybe I'm just getting better, and that time will get shorter. But it's always been 3 years for me.
Yeah. Well, great things, that are really worth it take time.
Yeah,
That's the main thing.
Exactly.
Now, talk about a couple of the songs that you're most proud of on the album. If there's any story behind them, or a message, or something like that. What are the highlights for you?
I guess there's two sides to that story. There's the lyrical content of what it is, and then there's the music as well. You know what I mean? So, I guess
I'm just a simple.
Lyrically, this album is lyrically for me sort of a culmination of basically the past 5-6 years of my life. There's a lot of relationship stuff on there. I went through breaking off an engagement to be married, and I fell in with some women that say there's the relationship stuff. There's
like everyone does, shady females.
Exactly. There's songs on there about I've lived in L.A., Hollywood now. Just recently moved, but I've lived here for 10 years now this year. So there's songs on there that are about the type of people that I've met, the not so great people, the situations that have come from that. There's songs about just living the rest of my life with the mentality of tomorrow could be the last day, and no regrets, and that type of thing. But it's a record that's, at least lyrically, has helped me deal with a lot of things that kept me in a really dark place for a long time, and I would result to self-medication because of self-loathing, and it's just like this record helped me deal with a lot of those things in a more constructive way than drinking or other things like that, because it's destructive. So
sure,
it's a very lyrically medicinal album for me. As far as music goes, there's only one song on the record where I really wrote any of the actual music enough to say anything about the actual music of it. But Phil, and CJ, Jeff, they were all writing the rest of the songs. And,
we just hung out and basically in my studio and wrote everything.
Yeah.
So I always
it kind of came out. I would pop in from time to time. But it to me it felt like it was just maybe coming from the same places for a lot of these guys too, because they've been crapped on in other bands that they've been in or other situations, and and when you're a musician that actually plays an instrument, that's the emotion I think that's pouring out through your instrument too. So I know with him, he and I became friends off of the fact that
Yeah, when we met, we just he got out of his relationship and I just got out of a really bad one. And so when we met, it was just like, all right, let's be self-destructive.
Yeah, because you find safety in that. But,
so we were party buddies, and we were just writing music and having fun, and we just go out and get drunk. Like, cool, everything feels okay as long as we're doing these things, But that only lasts so long. Then, you calm it down and focus and do your stuff. But yeah, I'd say the first year was a pretty big whirlwind.
And just the music side of it, I think we just, everybody wanted to keep it sort of everybody wanted it to be heavy, but not heavy in the sense of like, you know, it's just the overall mood and feel of it too. You know, there's a difference between having something just, you know, super heavy, and then having something give you a feeling of like, this is something emotional and
you don't have to gravity blast at 240.
Right.
Heavy, you know what I mean?
You're not in a contest to be the heaviest.
And not that heavy, not like trying to make the heaviest breakdowns, but just
right.
And I do love that stuff, but that wasn't our goal.
Something that just resonates, you know, in that core of you, that emotion in your heart, you know. And I think that we did that musically and lyrically.
Yeah, you create the heaviness with, you know, a vibe and emotion more than just extreme brutality.
Yeah.
You know, which is two different ways of doing it. You know, I enjoy both, but as far as playing, I like to do the feeling, you know, where it's like you're going from a fast up rocking, you know, verse, and then you just drop it heavy into the chorus, you know what I mean? And then you bring it back up with some more energy, kind of make it ebb and flow, you know.
Right.
You know, push and pull.
So for people watching this interview who haven't heard the music, what would you tell them as far as what your band's all about and encourage them to go hear the music?
Sure. If you've never heard us before, it is heavy, but there's groove, there's melody, there's good songwriting. The lyrical content, I think, is something that's personal for myself, but also totally accessible by everybody else. I think we're an accessible band for that emotion inside of you that you know, that you need to.
If you've ever been hurt or lost somebody, or you're gonna relate to the lyrics of this band.
Yeah,
you know, had a loss in life.
And I'll touch on that right now too. The actual name of the band, you know, Before the Morning, I guess, has a somber tone to it. But actually, we're a band, you know, that what we stand for is exactly what that is. Before the Morning is remembering all of the good things about whatever it is that you've lost, you know, and celebrating life, basically. You know, it's before the morning comes where you're going to be sad about something, really remember and keep those good things about whatever it is that you lost alive with you, and celebrate, you know, what it was that made it an impact on you, you know. So
yeah, one of my favorite songs on the record is Ethereal End, and that's the title track off the record. It's one of the songs about loss, and you know what I mean. I lost my mom 10 years ago, so to me, it's like, you know, I relate to the, you know, the kind of anger of being alone and all that stuff. So I always enjoy songs of that nature. You know, a lot of our songs have to deal with that kind of topic. You know, so yeah, you're definitely, if you ever had some pain in your life, you're going to relate to our music, and it'll be something to kind of get a good release and.
But I would want it to be. I would want it to be something that's almost therapeutic in the sense of like.
Totally. Yeah.
You're going to listen to this, and it should not make you feel worse about your situation.
Yeah.
It should make you feel like, oh wow, there's somebody else that's felt that same way. Like, life's going to be a little bit better. You know?
Yeah, I'm not the only one who feels like.
It might sound depressing, but I'm not trying to depress a bunch of people. You know? I'm trying to let somebody know that there's other people out there that have had bad stuff happen to them, and you know. Come to a show, you have 30 minutes to forget about all the bad stuff and let it all out. So
and then we'll hang out and drink with you afterwards.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we're totally an approachable band, you know. We're like, you see us, come hang out, but we'll sit there and, you know, we're drinking that night. We'll have a shot with you if it's after the show, you know, usually. But yeah, come down. We usually always hang out at the merch booth or whatever. So we're approachable. Don't be afraid to come say hi and talk. And we're, you know, normal people.
We're not the heaviest. We're not the lightest. It's an accessible. It could be a really heavy artist's guilty pleasure listening to us, and then we could be that heavy band for somebody that isn't exactly into heavy music. You know, it's kind of I feel like we're a band that kind of bridges the gap of both worlds.
Yeah, definitely, because we're all influenced by heavy stuff. You know what I mean? But we also like, you know, more just classical rock things as well.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of put that all together, and you kind of end up in the gray area in between where
Elements
you get really
of both.
heavy, and then you're not quite. You know, you're just so. I like the gray area. That's the fun place to be because you're not just one thing. You kind of go wherever you want, and it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to the second record because to really expand upon what we did on this record. You know, we really found our sound on this record. So now the next one's gonna be fun to see where we take it. I don't even know yet. So. It'll be fun to see what we expand upon, if we get more ambient, or if we get darker and heavier, or if we get more upbeat and faster. I don't know. I know I want to write a couple fast songs in this next one, though. I love that thrashy, like, up-tempo stuff. So I definitely want to put some of those on the next record when we do it.
There's always a need for speed.
There always is. There always is. So.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Can't wait to see you on the road.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you very
definitely.
much. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.